Everyone wants to know, what's the best diet? What should you do to lose weight? I'm gonna give you the reason why this diet plan that Dr. Berg is giving works without him realizing that's the actual reason, and then go into what is the true best diet for everyone for fat loss.
Maybe I'm eating too healthy or reducing too many carbs, or maybe I'm exercising too much, right? 80% of your results are going to be diet.
When I hear people say I'm exercising too much or I'm eating too little, that's why I can't lose weight because it crushed my metabolism, give me a break.
And 20% are related to exercise. What does it actually mean, and is it actually true? And I'm going to tell you that it's not actually true. It really depends on another thing, okay?
Okay. When it comes to looking the way you want to look, most of the time when it comes to fat loss, it is 80% diet, because what you put in your mouth is going to determine if you're losing weight, because you need to be in a calorie deficit. Calories in versus calories out. If you're eating less than you're taking in, you're going to lose weight. And the exercise part, if you're wanting to get the muscles, then you got to spend some time in the gym. So you work out in the gym to build the muscle. The kitchen is where you lose the fat and where you get the protein that you need to build the muscle, as well as enough calories.
There's two things about diet. It's, of course, what you eat. And if you know anything about fat burning, it's really tied into the insulin component part, right? If you lower your insulin, then your body can now stop storing fat and you can start burning your fat. And that's really about lowering your carbohydrates. The lower that you bring your carbohydrates, the more fat you're going to burn.
Do you remember the protein bar video? This video, and he's claiming that a protein bar is worse than a candy bar. Keep that in mind. He's saying that they are worse than a candy bar. Yeah, it's all about carbs, 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 hidden carbs. That's why they're so bad. Because he's afraid of carbs. He's obviously a keto guy. But he says you need to lower your insulin in order to allow yourself to start burning fat, as if your body's not gonna burn fat if you're in a caloric deficit. I did a bodybuilding show a year and a half ago, and I ate a ton of carbs. And he's gonna say, well, that's because you're insulin sensitive. We'll get to that in a second. No, actually, we'll get to that. Before I say this, we'll just go back into what he's saying.
Always work. So there's this other variable of when you eat, okay? Because there are a lot of people
sounds like fasting
who go on the ketogenic diet, low carb diet, and they're healthy foods. They don't lose any weight. Of course, when you look at the frequency of eating, they're eating 3 meals with 3 snacks, but that's all good food.
Why? I'll tell you why. It's not just about what kind of diet you do. You have to be in a caloric deficit. Regardless of the diet you do, it could be keto, it could be carnivore, it could be paleo, it could be fasting, it could be carb cycling, it could be 1 meal a day, it could be high protein, it could be low fat, it could be low carb, whatever you want. All those different things are different ways of putting your body in a caloric deficit, typically without actually counting those calories, because most people don't want to take the extra few seconds it takes to actually track something that you're eating and understand how much you're having. So you go into a keto diet and just start eating all the bacon, and fat has a lot of calories, 9 calories per gram versus 4 calories per gram in protein and carbs. So you just start eating all this food and you're like, I'm doing keto, but I'm not losing weight. It's because your calories are still higher than they need to be to lose weight. But what does he say?
And some people lose weight and yet other people can't.
Because some people are in a caloric deficit and others aren't. It's really as simple as that.
It's to do with this one thing, and that is insulin resistance.
Oh, I thought he was gonna say caloric deficit, but no, it's insulin resistant.
If they have insulin resistance, which by the way is about 70% of the population, the people that are successful just by reducing carbohydrates, just like the simple sugars and some of the refined foods, that is a much smaller percent of the population, but they can actually lose weight because they don't have insulin resistance. Somehow they never got it. Maybe it's part genetics. Maybe they haven't lived on so many carbs and sugar like the rest of us. But the point is, the more insulin resistance you have, the more you have to not just lower your carbs, but the more you have to do infrequent eating. That's called intermittent fasting. Now, if we just take a look at
Sure, you can have insulin resistance, but that doesn't change the laws of thermodynamics. If you consume less than your body needs per day, you will lose fat. Your body is going to take extra fat and burn it. People that start doing a low carb diet, like he's saying, what's going to happen? Well, you're gonna take in fewer calories because you're taking more of the carbs out. And you're gonna lose a lot of water weight too if you do a keto type diet. I do that when I do a peak week for a bodybuilding show, and I lose like 5-6 pounds of water over like 4 days. So you see results pretty quickly, and people think, oh, this is awesome. And then as soon as you eat some carbs, your body fills back up with those carbs. Every 1 gram of carb holds 3 grams of water. So then you hold a bunch of weight and they're like, oh no, these carbs are making me fat overnight. And you actually see a physical change because you look more bloated because of all the extra water that you're not used to having if you're following a keto diet. But when people start cutting out carbs, What kind of things are people eating that have carbs? It's not just the carbs, it's a big deal because we talked about the calories and carbs versus fat. It's when people eat those things that are high in carbs and fat, like donuts, like candies, like all the sweets that people eat. So typically you cut that type of stuff out. You cut out a lot of really high calorie foods and you automatically put yourself in a deficit, because when you go from eating donuts to eating a bunch of eggs, it's hard to binge on eggs versus binging on donuts. But I have actually done a video before where I ate only donuts for a day and I was lighter later on because of the small volume of food I had, 9 donuts, but I stayed within my calorie limit just to show that it is calories in, calories out. You're not gonna gain fat if you eat too little. Instead, Dr. Berg should develop something where we can induce a high insulin resistance state to everyone in the world, and all these kids all over who are starving will no longer be starving because they'll just be packing on weight because they're insulin resistant. They could just eat hardly anything, but they'll still gain weight because they're just not able to lose fat. Does that make sense? And then he talks about you also need to go into fasting. Well, what does fasting do? If you cut a meal out of your diet, you are cutting calories out of your diet. It's a simple way of cutting calories. Oh, I'm just gonna skip food. You just have to be careful not to binge when you get to those later meals. Same with 1 meal a day.
2 main things that increase insulin: carbohydrates and the frequency of eating.
Sure, yeah, I mean, the more you eat, the more it stays spiked and the more carbs you have, but still, you could eat constantly throughout the whole day, but if your total caloric intake is less than what you need, you're gonna lose weight, you're gonna burn fat.
A lot of different meals, a lot of different snacks. We just take a look at those 2 things and we compare them. I'm gonna tell you right now, the frequency of eating and the snacks is way more important and way more significant than just lowering your carbs, because there are a lot of people that can pretty much eat whatever they want.
That burger looks good.
And they're still able to lose weight, but they only eat just 1 meal a day with absolutely no snacking, versus a much smaller percent of the population which start reducing their carbs, and they haven't introduced intermittent fasting yet, but some of those people will lose weight, but not a large percentage. And when we're talking about this shred guy, he's pretty much focusing on a very small percent of the population that can lose weight just by reducing some of the junk foods and reducing the added sugars and the processed sugar, because he allows fruit and things like that.
Lose weight by reducing that stuff is because you are reducing your calories. 1 meal a day, you can eat whatever you want for that 1 meal. Yeah, you're reducing your calories. You can eat like a 3,000 calorie pizza in one sitting and still be above your daily needs, and you're not gonna lose weight, but it just makes it more difficult. But to me, it's a lot more difficult to force yourself to not eat for most of the day, stuff yourself, which, I mean, 1 meal a day really sounds like a binge eating disorder. Hopefully, don't get in trouble for saying that on the channel. But when I did a bodybuilding show, dieting down to like 7% body fat, I ate so many carbs. Well, he'll say, well, you're not insulin resistant, which is true. I had some blood work done recently and I wasn't. But I ate French toast almost every morning, 3 or 4 pieces of bread. And you think, oh, that's gonna spike your insulin, but the overall glycemic index, like the glycemic load, I have so much Greek yogurt and protein, egg whites packed into that, it balances the whole thing out. And then I'd also be eating oatmeals with protein powders, tons of vegetables, lots of rice, lots of potatoes, so many carbs because they help you perform, especially when you need energy for workouts, when you're feeling super depleted from dieting so long. And I lost weight the entire time because the amount of calories I needed per day versus what I ate was less, so I kept burning fat the whole time. And speaking of bodybuilding, I'm hosting a bodybuilding show virtual online, so anyone anywhere in the world can enter and compete. I have it linked in the description. You can check out the CamFit VIP competition. I have Greg Doucette lined up as a head judge for the final event. It's gonna be taking place in May. You have a chance to win $5,000 and a lot of gear from various companies I've worked with before. So be sure to check that out. It's gonna be a fun new event. But when it comes to weight loss, that's all it really is calories in versus calories out. And all these different diets are different ways of doing that. So what is the best diet? Let's hear his final thoughts and then we'll get to that.
The reason I know this is because my initial diet was very similar to his. I didn't recommend it.
Me neither.
I did recommend these snacks, apples and nuts, lowered fat, and a very similar diet. And I was successful to some degree. I wouldn't say that it was a high level of success like it is now. So if you wanted to know, can you lose weight and eat what you want? Yes, you can. For a certain small percent of the population who does not have insulin resistance, they just need to cut down a little bit on their carbs. But for everyone else that has insulin resistance, which is like 70% of the population, they're going to have to do fasting, like 1 meal a day. And they will definitely experience results.
I totally disagree because it's just a factor of calories. So what is the best diet? When it comes to dieting, all these diets are different ways. of restricting your calories to make you be in a caloric deficit so that you lose fat over time. You don't want to do too much because you're going to start losing muscle too. You want to maintain the muscle you have. Muscle's metabolically active. It's going to keep you healthy and it's going to burn more calories. You don't want to basically just lose weight and be losing muscle and fat and then you stay at the same relative body fat percentage because you're crash dieting, trying to get down to whatever weight in as quick a time as possible. You can use any diet that you like to lose the weight, but the real problem is the temporary nature of the diet. So if you just ate whatever you wanted and that's what made you gain weight, and then you go on some special diet like this, it helps you to lose weight, and then you get to your end goal, you get to the weight you want to be, you get to looking how you want in the mirror, and you're like, okay, the diet's over, and you don't have a game plan, and you go back to eating what you did before, especially if you're fatigued, diet fatigue from dieting however long it took, you gain the weight back really quickly because you didn't learn to actually make changes. So the best diet that you can do for fat loss is the diet that you will continue to do for life because it is your diet, what you ate, that got you to the place that you were to start with. But now you can't just go back to what you did before. You need to pick a diet that you can continue doing, a lifestyle for the rest of your life. So for him, it works doing keto, doing intermittent fasting because those are ways of him restricting his calories and maintaining that for the long term, which I don't think intermittent fasting in itself is bad. For me, I didn't get very good gains in muscle building when I did that because I found when I eat more meals throughout the day, I don't start feeling hungry, I perform better in the gym, and I'm getting continuous amounts of protein throughout the day. I eat usually 4 or 5 times a day, and I'm getting like 30 to 40 grams of protein in every meal that I have to get close to my body weight in grams of protein per day. So if intermittent fasting works for you and you like that and it's a good way of restricting calories and you just want to maintain the way you look once you get there, do it. If you like keto and it makes you feel good, I don't like not having carbs in my system. I feel a lot weaker in the gym. It just doesn't feel right to me. I'm sure I'd adapt over time, but I don't like it because I like eating pizzas and ice creams and stuff like that. Everything in moderation, and there's lots of alternatives for those types of things too. I have lots of videos showing recipes for alternatives to all kinds of foods that I eat all the time that are lower in calorie, higher in protein to help you maintain the muscle and keep a lower calorie intake so you can look the way that you want. If it's carnivore, I mean, a lot of the reasons these things like keto and carnivore work is because you cut out so many foods and it's really hard to binge on chicken breasts. It's hard to binge on eggs. You start feeling really hungry and like you could get a tub of ice cream and just keep eating it. Well, try cooking a whole carton of egg whites. You're probably not gonna binge on it very long because you realize, okay, I'm not really that hungry. I'm just craving something. But whatever helps you in your lifestyle to continue doing that thing. I mean, you could go on a juicing diet and you're gonna lose a bunch of weight. You're probably not gonna be getting all the minerals you need and vitamins, or macronutrients too. But then you get to the end of it and go back to eating pizza and whatever other junk, you're gonna gain weight back really quickly.
Carbohydrates. Because it's not just about weight loss. It's about reducing your inflammation. It's about removing fat from the liver. It's about looking good as you lose weight because your skin is better and you're not putting all these other things in your body that don't contribute to healthy cells. It's also about reducing your risk for all the other chronic degenerative type problems. However, in this video, I really just wanted to differentiate the different variables in losing weight so you can kind of wrap your wits around it.
Yeah, that's enough. I'm not gonna say that any of those diets are bad. I'm not gonna say don't eat diets that are like only whole foods and things like that because that is better for you rather than eating a bunch of extra processed stuff. But in the end, it's just how many calories you have versus how many you need. People might say, well, with intermittent fasting, you're gonna promote autophagy and help kill out old bad cells and create new ones. And yeah, that may be good if you're someone who doesn't exercise at all. But when you're exercising, especially daily, regularly, lifting weights, resistance training, doing cardio, your body's naturally being put in a state of autophagy. So it's actually just as good to exercise as it is to just keep yourself from not eating. And I'd rather exercise more and eat more, because then I just feel better and you're getting more nutrients because you're eating more food overall. But let me know what you think of diets. People get really touchy when you talk about diets and say something's bad, like, oh, I wouldn't do carnivore or I wouldn't do keto or fasting or blah, blah, because when someone finally finds a diet that helped them to lose the weight, it's almost like a religious thing, like this is the way everyone should do it. But all diets, whether they tell you or not, are just designed to restrict your calories. And that's what makes you lose weight. So as long as you can do that and then stick with that same lifestyle afterwards, then you're gonna be good to go. So pick the one that you like, that works for you, that works for your lifestyle, and just stick with it and you're good to go. But let me know what you think of diets. What's your favorite one down below? I've tried a lot of different ones. And for me, it's just eating lower calorie foods, because you can eat pretty much whatever you want. Substitutes for lots of stuff. Again, I have lots of videos showing, especially restaurants too, what types of things I eat out at various restaurants that stay within my calorie limits for the day that are higher in protein and whatnot. But hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. Again, check out the link for the competition down below. I'll see you on the next one.